Right, good. That's the last of the comments on today's video read and responded to. Oh God, it's about 1 o'clock in the morning, reindeer time. I probably better go to bed, really. Oh look, that video that I did 2 years ago, a bit of an age gap, where I looked at the reasons why some relationships have large age gaps and what are the personality types involved, appears to have come up on my feed. How very interesting. I haven't checked that for 2 years. I wonder if there have been any interesting comments on that in the last 2 years. Yeah, I mean, basically, yeah, what was it I argued? I argued that basically women that marry men that are older than them are insecure and are gold diggers, and it's a very old selection trait. Yes, yes. What does this say? I'm one of the exceptions. I fell in love with a man who's 19 years my senior. He's skint and was going through bankruptcy when I met him. I'm skint too. We're both autistic, and he's the only one on my wavelength. I just want someone where I can go home, be accepted for being me, relax, talk and laugh until my belly hurts. That somewhere is wherever he is. The age gap, I think, helps. My differences seem more normal. Maybe I'm a gold digger, but my currency isn't money. It's a safe pair of arms. How extraordinarily interesting. Thinking about it, I know quite a lot of spurgy girls in my circles who have boyfriends or husbands that are a bit spurgy and are considerably older than them. I wonder if there's a relationship between the two. I wonder if autistic females, for some reason, sexually select for much older men, if the relationships work for some reason. Oh look, there are literally forums talking about this. I think I might feel a paper coming on. Hello, 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 and welcome to this edition of the Jolly Heretic. Now, today I would like to talk about something which has been inspired by my last video, which you will recall was on the relationship, was on the evidence that people that are autistic tend to sexually select for each other. And this is something for which I can currently only find anecdotal evidence, but for which I fully intend to research, which is the possibility that autistic females that are high in autism. Remember, autism is that you're very high in systematizing, and you're consequently you're very obsessive. You take in a lot of information. You're very sensitive to external stimuli. You notice details, that sort of thing. And that's that. And then the opposite extreme is that you are high in empathy, and you are very interested in the external signals of internal states. And that's the autism spectrum. That women who are high on the autism spectrum, or who have dimensions of being on the autism spectrum, seem to be more attracted to men that are considerably older than they are. Now, I thought this has occurred to me because I know anecdotally of many cases of it, and it was articulated very well by the quote on an old video of mine, which I just read out, and I wonder if there might be something to it. Could it be the case that for some reason females that are autistic are disproportionately sexually attracted to considerably older men, and why might this be the case? So again, there are many forums you will find online discussing this. I've put some in the thumbnail, but there are many forums you will find, and I suspect therefore it is a real thing, although I'm yet to look at it with proper data. But let's have a look at what might be going on. Well, one possibility, and it's a possibility that I raised in the last video, is that it's just a coincidence. So if two people are autistic, then those two people are neuroatypical. They experience the world in a very unusual way, in which they become fascinated by details, in which they have an excellent memory for detail, in which they really enjoy processing and systematizing the world, in which they in which they become really, really deeply and profoundly interested in certain things, and they want to really look at them in a great deal of depth, and they become, truly, just drown in being absolutely fascinated in them, in which they experience all kinds of feelings, including their own internal sensations, extremely strongly. So they have massive rhapsodic heights, but terrible lows, and all of this sort of thing, in which they experience themselves as a bit strange, as kind of outsiders, as unusual. And it may be that when they meet someone else that is like that, of course, they will very, very intensely bond with them. And it could be argued that it is very, very unlikely that a person like that, who is so psychologically unusual, is going to meet their, as it were, soulmate, is going to meet the person that's just right for them, who's just like them. It's very improbable, because there's just so few people like that. The result is that it would be an extraordinary coincidence if, in addition to being the same in that way, they would also be the same age or the same social class or whatever. And so therefore maybe that's what's going on. It's just coincidence, and it's just the issue of autism overriding other considerations. It's simply a coincidence. Now that seems to me, I mean, that's possible, but I suspect there may well be more to it. And there are a number of theoretical reasons why this could be the case. So first of all, we would expect women who are high on autism traits to be, in some ways, almost psychologically middle-aged. They will be more logical than other people of their age. They will be more interested in system. Remember, intelligence goes up with age. Raw intelligence goes up with age until about middle age. Conscientiousness, which is rule following and to a certain degree therefore systematizing, goes up with age. So you would expect people who were high in autism traits to, in a way, come across as kind of proto-middle-aged, as kind of early middle-aged, and to be, in a sense, not necessarily more, but kind of more intelligent than that's not quite the right term, but certainly higher in specialized abilities that correlate with intelligence than those of their own age, and that of boys of their own age. And therefore you might expect them to be far more interested in people that were older than them, not only in terms of sexual relationships, but simply in terms of their friends. You would generally expect them to get on with people that were older than them, because there would be a degree to which they would think like them. In another way, there is some evidence that people that are autistic are emotionally immature. So in that way, that kind of wouldn't work. But certainly intellectually, it would work. And so you would expect them to find men of their own age tiresome, and therefore to be attracted to people that were older than them. A third possibility is that there is some evidence, a paper I found called Exploratory Analysis of Links Between Life History Strategy, Reproduction Strategy, Autism Spectrum Quotient, and Quality of Life. There is some weak evidence of a relationship between autism and a fast life history strategy. So people that are a fast history strategy is that you basically live fast, die young, that you're set up, we're all on a spectrum from fast to slow life history. Fast life strategy is an easy yet unstable environment in which you could be wiped out at any minute, and so therefore you live fast, die young, you invest all your energy in sex, copulation, and you have loads of children and you hope that some survive. As the group becomes closer to its carrying capacity, it becomes harsher and more predictable, and the group members start to compete with each other, and therefore you have to take energy away from sex and towards investment, because if you're in a harsh ecology, if your children aren't strongly adapted to the environment, not looked after, they could all just die. So therefore you have fewer children, and you invest more of your energy in nurture and less in copulation. This is a slow life history strategy. Autism inherently has aspects of a fast life history strategy. On average, men who are autistic are higher in testosterone, i.e. in aggression and drive and fast life history strategy traits. As you become a slow life history strategist, often you will become better at social skill, because in order to survive, you have to create a group, basically a functioning group, and this militates in favour of agreeableness and conscientiousness and generally empathy and generally social skill. So you can see how there is a degree to which autism can be understood as a fast life history strategy trait, and there is evidence that autism weakly correlates with fast life history strategy components, such as when you have children, having children young, doing things young, basically, going through puberty young, even generally living fast and dying young. Now, one thing to which we are evolved in those kinds of ecologies The man will sexually select for youth and beauty because he has nothing to lose from the sexual encounter, and the woman will sexually select to the extent that she sexually selects at all for status, because if a male has status, then he is more likely to have resources that he can invest in her, and therefore her children and her will be more likely to survive. So in this sense, she is a kind of as it were, a gold digger. She selects for status. Now, a good proxy for status, of course, is age, because on average men who are older will be more likely to have status. So therefore you can see how it will be adaptive for women to start to sexually select for age, in a romantic sense. I don't mean in a physical sense of enjoying men that are bald or enjoying men that have got grey hair, but I mean in a romantic sense, you can see how they would be kind of turned on by age and how that would be adaptive. So could that be what's going on? Could it be that autistic females are basically high in certain fast life history strategy traits which make them extremely attracted to older men because in prehistory, that's what a fast life history strategy person needs. She needs an older man who will look after her and invest in her, basically, so that her and her offspring survive. And the fact that he is older is a proxy for social status, and therefore, in that kind of ecology, a proxy for good genes, because they're the genes that permitted him to achieve social status. The next possibility is, well, I don't want to say fetishes, because a fetish is something that's associated with being autistic, and it's the idea that autistic people are very interested in things, very interested in structures, very interested in scripts, and they're also, this is another fast life history strategy aspect, they're also, they tend to be hypersexual, and they tend to be very, very, very strongly impacted by stimuli, and the result of that is that they create they're also they feel their own bodies and the movements of their own bodies and just their own feelings, essentially, very, very, very strongly and very, very powerfully. I mean, what are feelings other than things happening in your body? They're internal stimuli, and they will feel these things very powerfully, and the result of that is that they can very easily develop sexual associations, much more easily than can ordinary people, and they can develop sexual associations therefore with things very, very strongly. So an example is that you might get a male, who it's perfectly normal for a male to be sexually aroused by breasts. They are a secondary sexual characteristic, and it's perfectly normal for a male to be a breast man rather than a leg man or an arse man, right? But you might get in the autistic, he's absolutely obsessed with breasts. There have to be breasts. He has to be looking at breasts, or he can't get aroused at all. So that's moving into the world of a fetish. It's not quite a fetish, but it's moving into the world of a fetish. Now, you wouldn't expect women to develop fetishes because the sexuality in women is less focused around the physical. It's not saying it's not focused around the physical. It is. Of course, men have secondary sexual characteristics, muscles, masculinized faces, whatever it happens to be. And women are aroused by these things, but you wouldn't expect it to be a fetish that I know a woman would be aroused by an old men. That would be unlikely. Women don't tend to develop fetishes, but what you could have is that you take something which is latent in females anyway, which is that they are evolved to be sexually attracted to older men, and this could be taken to an extreme by an autistic female for whom this is felt very strongly, very keenly, because autistic females tend to feel things very strongly. So you take something which is adaptive and it's felt very strongly, more strongly than a neurotypical woman would feel it, and then this could develop into, as it were, a kind of special interest, into a kind of obsession. And therefore the idea of an older man and that being arousing could become something that is strongly focused on. So perhaps that could be an explanation. Another explanation is that in general, autistic people are higher in neurotic traits, that is to say, in feeling negative feelings strongly. Now, part of that is simply that being autistics, they feel all feelings more strongly. Their feelings, their internal life is just more intense than that of neurotypical people. And this will make them see. But the other thing is that the world is this kind of swirling chaos that they don't understand, and they can't. As I saw in another video, they can't synaptically prune. They are taking in all this information. There is constant background information all the time, which they cannot focus out. they cannot remove. And the result is that they have this world where a neurotypical person could just focus in on a system and understand the system. The autistic person desperately wants to systematize because he experiences the world as this sort of swirling chaos, but is unable to fully do so because all of this extra information is taken in. And so the world can become this kind of frightening system of chaos where you're constantly thinking, constantly wondering what would happen if this happens, what would happen if this happens, constantly worrying. And this helps to create a sense of anxiety and even depression. And of course, that anxiety could be allayed by having someone that will look after you, by finding someone that you feel will look after you and will make sure that everything is okay. And in a sense, you are a child to that adult. And you can see how, for an autistic female, perhaps an older man would, I don't mean gold digging, but an older man would serve that purpose better than a younger man, because he'll be more emotionally mature, he'll be more worldly wise, of course he'll have more resources, he'll be more intelligent, he'll be more conscientious. His social skills will have developed more. If he's an autistic as well, his social skills will have developed much more than an autistic of the same age. And so you can see how that would be another sort of another source of attraction, and therefore another way, if this relationship exists, it could happen. And finally, I guess there could just be a sort of a quirkiness to autistic people. That autistic people are just open to unusual things. Their brains have developed atypically. Their brains have developed differently. They create in their brains relationships which normal people don't create, and pathways normal people don't create. And this could lead them down to being particularly interested in older men somehow. So I think it's a very interesting empirical question. And I would like to appeal to you, if you are an autistic female, to help me. So could you, in the comments, if you are an autistic female or diagnosed as one, could you state that you've been diagnosed? Could you state if your husband or boyfriend has or has not been diagnosed? And could you state the age difference? And if you're not currently in a relationship, perhaps you could state the most recent relationship that you've had, and perhaps also state what country you're in. And this would give me data points with which I've got a data set anyway. I think I can analyse to get something like the information I want. But I've got enough drinkers here at the Jolly Heretic that I think I could gather the data myself through this process. So if you could give that information, and if you haven't been diagnosed, just say that you self-identify as on the spectrum and why. So that I can distinguish between the two. So I want diagnosed autistics, relationship that you have, is that person autistic or diagnosed autistic? What is the age difference and nationality? And then I want non-diagnosed autistics. Is your partner, again, autistic, non-diagnosed, whatever, and the age difference you have and nationality. And that would be absolutely superb. And I would be most violently grateful. And we could sort this out. Excellent. Well, I will see you all soon, and goodbye. Hello, hello, hello! The Jolly Heretic is an online public house which meets on Mondays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. UK time, 2 p.m. New York, in which we discuss the kind of based, fearless science which is increasingly expunged from our woke, joke universities. If you would like to help the Jolly Heretic public house, and there are many ways you can do so, please become one of my patrons on Subscribestar. Also, if you want to, you can donate to the channel using Odyssey and Entropy, and you can also purchase Jolly Heretic merchandise, such as shirts and mugs. All of the links are in the description. Again, I'd be most violently grateful if you could assist the Jolly Heretic Public House, and I will see you all soon, and goodbye!